there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got a lot of fun DIY home decor craft project for you. I need to change my line. I can't say that right. Hey there, I got some craft projects for you. What are we waiting for? Welcome to my channel. Let's get started. Today we'll be working on some Rustic Farmhouse fall home decor crafts. So let's get started with project number 1. For this project, I'm going to be using this cotton batting that I got from Walmart. I've already created a 22-inch diameter circle pattern, and that's what I used to cut this fabric out with. Okay, we're going to be using some fishing line here. This is a 30-pound test fishing line. Doesn't matter which one you have. This is just some my husband gave me. I've got a really long piece here and a needle that's got a large eye opening to it. So like doll needles or whatever you can get from Walmart. I'm going to go ahead and tie one knot at the end here. Actually, I tie like 3 or 4 knots because fishing line is really slick. And I'm going to show you this process again each time because I know we get new people watching. But, you know, those of you that know how to do this part, you, of course, may fast forward. So I'm going to stick my needle through the batting, and you can see it's part way out. I'm not going to pull the needle all the way out. Okay, we're going to do like a running stitch, so it creates like pleats, you know, like pleats at the top of a curtain. So my needle's part way out. I've got it, you know, on the back side. I'm going to bring it back through and poke it to the front side. Okay, I got about a 1/2 inch apart on my stitches and about a 1/2 inch from the top. It doesn't matter if your stitches get bigger or smaller, really it doesn't, but try to stay the same distance from the top at least. Okay, and then I'm going to come from the front and I'm going to poke my needle again to the back side, just like this, and then again to the front side. Okay, you can see I've got a couple pleats. We're going to go to the back side and to the front side, pleating the fabric as we go. Okay, back side, front side. Back side, front side. And when you get enough on your needle, you can go ahead and pull that through all the way till you reach the end of your knot. Okay? Go ahead and do it again. Same process, front to the back. Just like that. Front, see? Front to the back to the front to the back to the front to the back to the front. Say it with me now. You can do it. Front to the back to the front. When you get enough on there, pull it all the way through and continue this process all the way around till you come right back up to where you started, kind of where your knot is. So I've got a few stitches left here, fast forwarded for you, almost close to our knot. Once I get just kind of right next to it there, as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and pull my fishing line through and then pull the needle off of the fishing line. We don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to grab where this knot is right here, and I'm going to pull that out nice and long. So I've got 2 long pieces here. Okay, and then we're going to kind of open our pumpkin here, and we're going to stuff it. For those of you that are new, I use fishing line because I like to stuff my pumpkins really tight, and fishing line is the only thing I have found that doesn't break on me. I've used, you know, crochet, thread, yarn, that kind of thing. I like the fishing line. But, you know, you can try what you like. If I wouldn't go with any regular thread, I would definitely go with like a crochet thread, a yarn, something like that. So I'm just going to kind of clip these 2 pieces, these 2 fishing line pieces off and set it aside so they don't, you know, come out of our gather here. We're going to work on our stem. Now I'm going to use a piece of spindle here and cut a big piece off. I'm just showing you this is one version. This is the piece of spindle I'm going to use. You could, you know, here's other versions you could use. You could even use this. It's the handle from the toilet bowl plunger at Walmart. I like to use it and use the end with the little screws on it because it just gives it some personality. But I'm going to go with the little spindle piece today. You could use a nice big stick from your backyard, whatever you choose. And the spindle I've got here is just about 10 inches in length. Of course, you can make that as long as you want, but I kind of wanted a nice looking pumpkin stem. All right, we're going to take that clip off. We're going to pull our 2, you know, pieces of fishing line here and just figure out how big I need my opening here. So I'll be kind of testing that. And then once I get it to where I need it, I'll go ahead and get my spindle ready and get some glue on it. I'm going to use Beacon Fabri-Tac glue today for all of our projects today. You can certainly use hot glue, not an issue at all. So I'm kind of holding my fishing line threads over here and adding the glue onto this side. I can do it. If you got 2 hands, it works wonderful, but, you know, I'm getting it going here. So I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter here so I can get my handle in. Got the glue on it, so that's going to kind of hold for me as I pull even tighter and kind of close the gap as much as possible. It's okay if there's a little bit of gap there. We're going to cover that up if you don't get it completely tight around it, if there's even an inch gap around it. But, you know, it does kind of, you know, the closer you get to it, it does kind of help hold that spindle up as well. And I'm going to tie like 5, 6, 7 knots because, again, that fishing line is really slick and I don't want it to come out. Then once I get that to there, I'll cut off, I'll leave some kind of long tails just to give it some room here, and then I will kind of tuck the excess back inside of the pumpkin there. I'm going to use these leaves from Dollar Tree, these burlap leaves, a couple of them. I'm going to go ahead and sew around them. It's not real visible. I probably should have changed my thread. I have a brown thread on here, but, you know, a white thread might have been maybe a little bit more visible, and maybe even going around a couple of times, you know, double lined sewing. But I just think it adds that little bit of texture. Certainly if you're not a sewer, you don't have to do this part. I just like to do this. It's fun for me to sew. I love it, you know. So of course your choice. This is what it looks like. See, it's just real subtle, but you know, it's there. I know I did it right. I'll do that on both leaves. I'll continue off. And then once I've got that done, you can do this. You know, you can go around and kind of pull on the outer edges and kind of distress your leaves up a little bit. So if you're not a sewer and you want to add texture, this is a great way to do it. I'm going to use this grapevine wire I get from Hobby Lobby. You can see it's only like $3.99. I'm going to cut a nice, super big, long chunk off. You can see how long it is. And I'm just going to get it where I need it into position to wrap around nice and tight the bottom of our stem and really hang nice and loose and loopy off of the top end just to give it some personality. I'll use the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue and get that glued in there and kind of tuck it down into the inside of that pumpkin there. You can see what it looks like, all nice and loopy. I'm going to go ahead and start gluing the leaves on. I'm going to glue one kind of on either side of our stem here. See, that's already helping kind of cover up our opening around that stem a little bit and finishes it off, but we'll cover it even a little bit more. Perfect. I'm going to bring in some of this moss. You can use moss from Dollar Tree. I like the moss, I've decided, from Walmart better. It's not that much more expensive, and it's just a lot more moist and nice big pieces here instead of kind of the drier kind of short texture looking stuff from Dollar Tree. But use what you have. But I decided I really like this moss from Walmart, so that's what I'm using. I've got some of this raffia that you can get from Dollar Tree. I've just tied like 6 or 7 strands together into a nice bow. I'm going to glue that right up next to that spindle there. I'm going to use some of this mesh tubing from Dollar Tree. Love this. I've got 2 pieces here, and I've just kind of tied a knot in the middle, and that knot gives me some room, you know, to add some glue to. And here comes the second piece here, just to give us some more texture hanging out, as if we didn't have enough, but y'all know I like my texture. Kind of move things around here. Perfect. And now I've got just some ribbon I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I love this ribbon. Use whatever color you want. I tied it into a nice, great big bow. We're going to go ahead and glue that down over that mesh tubing and that raffia. And then I'm going to take a couple more pieces of raffia and a little bow and add it right up on top of that, just to bring that raffia a little bit more forward. I've got some flowers here from Dollar Tree. I'm going to use 2 from that. And then I've got some crochet trim here from Dollar Tree as well. And I've got some regular twine. I used 2 together to tie into a bow, and some really thin twine. I used about 4 or 5 together to tie into a bow. So what I'm going to do is get one of these flowers on here. I love that color orange. And then I'm going to take all these bows, the twine bows and the crochet bow trim, lump them together, and I'm going to kind of sandwich it in between the 2 flowers. So I've already got glue on this flower waiting, and I'm just sandwich it right in between, just like that. Once that's ready, we're going to go into making a little tag for our pumpkin. Now I am using this duck cloth I get from Walmart. It's really stiff, like almost like a canvas, and it runs through my little El Cheapy $30 inkjet printer fabulously. I don't know if it'll work that way on everybody, but it runs through mine. And I will put like a little piece of Scotch tape all the way across on the end so it can just grab it really nicely, and it just feeds right through, and it prints. And sometimes it'll print crooked. You can see here it's not real straight, but you know, you can get that fixed as you're cutting it out. If it doesn't work for you, you can just print it out on regular cardstock and use it that way. I will have a link to a free printable in my description box on the blog that you can print these phrases out. So I've got that cut out, and then I'm just running this again through my sewing machine. I'll run it, 2 or 3 times around just to get a fun little stitch around it. I'm not trying to be neat about it. It's actually a real crooked strip of sewing, but I'm just leaving it that way. If you're not a sewer, of course, skip that, and you can pull on the threads around it, and kind of distress your fabric up if you're using fabric, that kind of thing. And then I've got a great big clothespin here. I'm going to glue it onto my fabric, and then I'm going to glue it right up underneath our little flower ensemble, and then I'll just tack it down kind of on the end there, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to project number 2. For this project, you're going to need some felt, orange felt. You'll need 5 pieces I get from Walmart. They're like 24 cents a piece. And then 1 piece of brown felt. You only use about, an eighth of it. I've got some orange crochet thread here. You could use whatever color you want. I know Walmart doesn't carry this. I got this at Hobby Lobby. It was only $2.99 for all of this. And it's a number 10. That's the size, a number 10 crochet thread. But you can get like white from Walmart. I know Walmart carries white and like a cream color. Any of those will work, but I wanted to go with orange, of course. And then I'm going to use some of these from Hobby Lobby, but you could use these from Dollar Tree. Okay, and then I've got these acorns from Hobby Lobby. I know Dollar Tree has theirs in now too, so you can use that. Some leaves from Dollar Tree, using some clothespins. I get these are a nice kind of medium size from Walmart, small, you can see there. I like a nice kind of little fat chunky small size, and I'm going to be using this paper design that you can get from Hobby Lobby. Going to be using a pattern here to create a pumpkin. Don't worry, I've drawn these pattern pieces out for you so they look all nice and pretty, not like my messed up ones. You can see here, there'll be a link in my description box to a free printable on my blog for you. Or you can freehand it out yourself, okay? So let's start work on our pumpkins. We want 5, so fold your orange felt in half, and I have laid each piece down this way on our orange felt to make sure that we have enough room for the pattern. Then on the brown felt, and we want 2 of each piece for both those and the stem. And in the brown felt, you can just cut out, 5 of these little stems all the way across. You're going to actually have 10 little stems when you're done, of course. And you're going to have 10 of each of those when you're done, of course. So this is what they look like. 2 of those, 2 of those, and 2 of these for each pumpkin. I'm going to use thread here. If you are not a sewer and you don't want to do that, you can use your Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here. You could use hot glue, however you want it. I'm using sewing as a little bit of a, personality touch to it. Now, I use this Crafter Square felt in the center of just my 2 orange pumpkin shapes because I thought it would kind of poof it up a little bit. It really didn't, but I had already had them cut out and I didn't want to waste it, so you could totally skip this part because it didn't really poof up the pumpkin. So when you're going ready to glue, just glue it together like that, and glue it together like that, and then on the stem, glue it together like that, and then you'll put it all together like this, and you'll glue it just like that, okay? If you're a gluer. Now, if you're a sewer, we're going to go on to adding our stitches first before we glue the entire ensemble together. So I've got all my pieces glued together, each separate piece, right? And I just am doing a really easy little stitch around the edges here. I'm not trying to make it difficult or do that blanket stitch or whatever it is. Using a kind of a large eye needle again, because this crochet thread's, you know, a little bit thicker. I'm just going to knot one end. And I'm just going to start on the inside, anywhere on there, the inside, so you bring it all the way through, and our knot is going to be, you know, covered on the inside there. One little stitch just to get it started out. And I'm just going to simply just wrap over the top, just like that, and bring it back through. This first stitch, you want to bring it back through in the same area that you started, okay? Bring it back through the same area, just like that. You're just wrapping over the top. And then you're just going to kind of go a diagonal and come back around and wrap it just like that. And you just, you know, space it however far apart you want. You're just going to come around and over the edge of both of your pieces here, just like this. Around and over the edge. I'll do a couple more here. Working it. Again, this is just totally optional. And it's just a really easy stitch. But see what it kind of does? It just adds a little bit of a personality to it. It gives it a little bit of kind of a country farmhouse look, however you want to do it. Now, once we've come around and we're just right close to that where we first started, I'm going to take that last stitch I did and bring it around to the back side, and I'm going to come up under the very first stitch I did just to kind of lock it in place. I'm going to do that twice. And the second time that I come back up through, I'm going to leave a little loop, just like this, so I can pull my needle and thread through twice, and then pull it all the way closed to make a little knot. Now I'm going to cut off the excess. I'm going to leave a long strand here, just because I want to close it up. I'm going to take my scissors and make a little hole, not a hole, but open up the two pieces of felt, add some glue, and then I'm going to pop that thread right in between a couple of stitches there into the felt to hide that end. All right, so I've got both my pieces done. Of course, doing this on all my pumpkins, and again, it's your choice. If you're already glued, you're just sitting here waiting, but those of us that sewed, we're going to go ahead and glue our stem together, and then we're going to glue that onto the base of our pumpkin, and then we'll go ahead and glue that top little section right over the top of our stem. And then that makes our pumpkins complete. Perfect. 5 of these. Look how stinking cute they are. I love them. I just love how they turned out. So cute, so cute. All right, so I'm going to take some of those leaves from a Dollar Tree now. And I'm also going to use 6 acorns, 4 leaves, 6 acorns. What I did is I traced my leaf onto that scrapbook paper, and then I came around about 1/4 inch in, and I redrew the new perimeter. And that's what I'm going to cut out, because I want to cover my leaves with paper. You can skip the step if you don't want to cover it with paper. I'm going to cover the front and the back of each leaf. So you're going to need 2 of these for each leaf. Now, you totally don't have to cut it short. I just like to see that little bit of wood perimeter around there. But you don't have to do that. You could just trace it and cover your leaf entirely front and back, or if you want to leave the back side, that's fine too. I also took mine to the sewing machine because y'all know I like to add a little bit of stitching around it. Okay, so this is what that would look like, front and back. Again, the sewing is optional. Before we glue those on, I'm going to take this Waverly Antique Wax. I'm at like the end of my bottle, so I've got a bunch of water in there. And so I'm going to mix that with water. And then I've got that Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth. I'm going to just stain around the edges of my leaves, front and back. If you didn't want to do paper on your leaves, you could just totally stain here. Or, of course, use some brown paint and just paint it normal. Or white paint or whatever color you want. You know, you might want to really add some fall colors in there. I'm going to take these clothespins. I started out with 2 because I was just going to use clothespins on those woodwards, and then I decided I want the clothespins on my pumpkins. So later you'll see me bring in some more clothespins and paint those up as well. I'm going to use the same Waverly Antique Wax for the top of all my little acorns. I'll kind of paint it on there and wipe it off so it looks a little distressed. And then I'll come in with that chalk paint, that Drop Cloth shade chalk paint, and paint the bottom of the acorns. I just do 1 coat, and as I paint around it, once I'm done, while it's still wet, I'll take that paper towel and wipe off some excess just to give it a little bit of a distressing look. And I don't care, I'm not trying to be real fancy with these and get it all just perfectly wonderful painted. Here's what it looks like, all wiped off. Because, I think this just that a little bit of, not so perfect painted looks great for our rustic look. Next thing I'm going to do, again, all this is optional. You guys just know I like to add the fine details as I'm coming in with some sandpaper. And I'm just going to sand around the edges of all my leaves front and back before I go ahead and glue our paper on. Now we're finally to the gluing of our paper. So we'll go ahead and get that on, front and back of our leaves. Did I tell you the front and back of our leaves? I feel like I've said that 10 times. Just using my Fabri-Tac glue here. Perfect. I'll get the rest kind of done off camera, speeding ahead for you. There we go. Now I'm going to use 3 of these little eyelets. They're little tiny eyelets, or not eyelets, little tiny screw eyes. And I'm taking a big dull needle and I'm just making a hole right at the top of the acorn. And I'm taking these tiny little screw eyes and I'm just going to screw them into the top of 4 of the acorns. 2 of them we're going to leave as they are, 4 of the acorns, so that way we have a way to hang these acorns. Here's what they look like. Okay, now I'm going to take some twine here. I've got some really long twine. It's about 14 inches for each acorn. I like to make it long so I can cut off the excess. And I'm just going to figure out, I'm going to put that through the screw eye of our acorn, and about 2 inches up or so I'm going to make a little knot, because I want these to kind of hang a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take another piece of twine just about the same length, 14 inches. I'm going to bring it right down on that screw eye there, and I'm going to make a little bow just to add a little fun flair to it. Okay, so this is what all your 4 acorns are going to look like, if you want them to look that way. I'm going to take my crocodile here and I'm going to go back in where the holes originally are on our leaves, and I'm just going to kind of repunch those holes because we kind of covered them with the paper. And I'm going to do the same thing with the twine as we did on the acorn. I'm going to bring them through that hole, bring it together, and about 1 inch up from the tip of the leaf I'm going to tie a little knot. And I'm going to leave that extra to help us to tie around our main garland. Yes, of course we're making a garland. You didn't think I was going to get away from this fall season without making a garland, did you? I'll do that on all 4 leaves. Here I am coming back in and just going ahead and staining a couple more of our clothespins. I'll show you here what I was originally thinking that I was talking about just a second ago. See, I was going to add a clothespin on our words here and decided against that. I thought it'd be cuter to clothespin the pumpkins up. Look like this. I just thought that looked a little bit cuter for detail. Okay, and you don't have to use a clothespin at all if you don't want to, but what I'm going to do though, since I'm not going to add clothespins here, is just add again some twine here, again about a 12-inch piece. I'm going to tie a knot just like right up above here, about 1/2 inch maybe, so it hangs just a little bit, but it'll be close to the twine. I'll do that. I'm only doing 2 words here. Okay, so for our main twine, I usually get about 80 inches of twine, and I like to use 2 twine. So I'm going to use the macrame thread from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use that brown and white twine from Dollar Tree that came out with all the sea, by the sea stuff, okay? 80 inches for each one, and then what I'll do is I will take the end once I've got the 80 inches cut out, I will take the last 10 inches of each one, like you see here, and then I will just double, turn it into a loop and make a knot out of each end so we've got room for hanging. So then we're at about 60 inches of hangable surface here, so about 5 feet for our garland when we're done. You can see I've got my tape on all my pieces where I want it to be. What I do is I start out with the center piece, which one's going to be my center, and I mark it, and I usually just fold my twine in half, and then I lay it out on the ground and I just evenly space everything where I want it to be, and then I mark it with tape so it's easier to, once I, put it up on the wall, as you'll see here, we'll change view here in just a few minutes, I know exactly where I need to hang everything. So that's just my way of hanging things evenly across our garland. So I'm going to use a bunch of different ribbons here from like Hobby Lobby and Dollar Tree, I think that even came from Joanne, some of this trim from Dollar Tree, some fabric from Dollar Tree, whatever you want. I usually would do about 6 or 7 different pieces of trims and fabrics and that kind of thing for tying onto our garland, and I cut about 6 or so pieces of each one that I'm going to use. Okay, here they're already cut out, and then I'll cut 2 long pieces for the end. My pieces are about 5 inches in length. And on the fabric here, I just cut it about 1 inch in width and then rip it on the fabric. And then I'll cut, like I said, about 5 inches in length here. Okay. The 2 long pieces of ribbon on the end, those are about, 20 inches long or so, because I like to put large bows at the end of each of my garland to kind of hide the knot where we made that little loop at the end. So a couple pieces here I thought would look nice. Again, 1 inch wide strips, and then cut them in about 5 inch length sections. And I'm just guessing here. 5 inches is usually too long, but I'd rather have enough and I can cut off the excess than trying to tie too short of pieces. Those pieces kind of ripped kind of funny, so I gotta fix that. Ripped kind of funny, ripped a little too wide, so I'm just fixing that. And if I don't end up using all of it, that's okay, because I just set it aside and save it for another garland. Now originally I have this really thin white twine tied into a bow, and I tied that on all of my pumpkins. So you'll see this here with white twine. I liked it at first, and then I decided I didn't like it. So in the final looks, you're going to see that white twine is replaced with orange twine, okay? And it's just orange twine from Dollar Tree. I just thought the pumpkins needed a little more personality. And also what you're going to see in the final looks, as I walked away from the garland, I was thinking those pumpkins still need something else. So what I did is off camera, I added like a safety pin and a rusty star, and I pinned it just right up underneath that bow. So you'll, like I said, you'll see that in the final looks. Okay, so I've changed views here for you so you can see how I start to hang everything up here. I start with our main theme of our garland, of course, which is our cute little pumpkins. And I'm just clipping, for now, I'm just clipping them into the clothespins, but off camera, I will go back in with some Fabri-Tac glue and I will, glue that clothespin onto the pumpkins. And then I'm going to start bringing the leaves in. We have 5, odd number, 5 pumpkins, and then, of course, 4 leaves and 4 acorns. So I'm just going to kind of hang the acorns and leaves in between each of the pumpkins. And whatever direction I put on the right side, I will have that same pattern on the left side as well. And it's the same for tying on our little fabric and ribbon pieces or whatever. However I tie them on the right side, I will tie the same thing on the left side. I'm just going to use a couple of those happy falls here right near the front of our garland here, just to add a little more something. You don't have to use, you could figure out what you want. I don't know what I'm trying to think here, but you don't have to use acorns. You could use just words and leaves going across would be super cute. Make it your style and how you want it to be, and it will turn out perfectly wonderful, I promise. Just kind of making things sure they're spaced out, because I can still kind of move these around a little bit before I get them fully knotted in. All right, so here I come in on the right side, and we're going to start adding in our little ripped pieces of fabric and our cut pieces of ribbon and crochet trim, all that sort of stuff. I usually would do 2 or 3. I start out kind of, how do I want to say this? I start out kind of not adding too much ribbon at once. I go across and maybe add a couple in between each one as I work down the garland, and then I'll go back in and decide where I could fill it in a little bit more with some more ribbon, even still, just to make it look nice and full. But I don't try to put too heavy of a lot of ribbon along the first round, and it's just my preference of the way I do that. So we've got the right side done, so now I'm kind of taking the left side and copying that, making sure that everything is, uniform across the whole garland. I think it looks so super cute, and it looks even cuter with that white twine off there and orange twine and a cute little rusty star in the center. I'm just telling you, it really does. It made a lot of difference. The white twine was just like staring at me like a beacon. I'm white. I don't look good. I'm white. I don't look good. So I took it off. Anyway, again, just preference. Moving right along here. I know this part is long, but I just really want you all to see how this is done So you get real comfortable with these because they're so super easy to do. I love to make garlands. They're not real easy maybe to film to show you guys. I hope I am filming this in the way that you can understand and get the gist of how it goes together, but I just love to do them. So now I'm taking some twine here, some longer twine, like 24 inches or so, and I'm coming along on those leaves right at the top, and I'm going ahead and making a little bow with those as well, because they just needed a little something more. They were hanging there without anything, and that just gives it more texture even. And then I just kind of cut off the excess because it's a little too long. Again, I cut my things longer than they need to be, rather have too much and then cut off the excess, like I said before. There we go. Perfect. Going to adjust everything a little bit. Now I'm coming in with the ribbon. Sorry, I'm kind of in the way here a little bit, but I'm just tying a bow right over that knot by that loop. So it kind of sets it off, covers it up. And then I won't do it here the way this is, situated on the wall and upright, but I'll go ahead and glue those 2 acorns that we have left to the center of those bows. And you'll see that again in the final looks. So with that said, that makes this project complete. So I hope you like both projects that I came up with today. I think either of these would look wonderful in your home amongst your own fall decor. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which project you want to make right now. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you wandered in here and you're just checking things out and you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off you hit that red subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. You're knocking, knocking, knocking on the door of God, and you've been knocking for a very, very, very long time. And frustration or tears often get a foothold in our spirit some days, maybe most days, maybe today, and you want to give up. But God is saying, stay there. Keep moving forward. Keep knocking and seeking for all He has promised you. Don't let the enemy fill your mind with giving up and thinking that God is too busy to care or there's more important things going on in the world that He doesn't have time for you. Keep the attitude of your heart and mind focused on God and His power. Move forward and run the race that God has given you. In fact, be diligent and willing to win the race. Keep running toward the land flowing with milk and honey, no matter how long it takes. God will give you access to that land. You only need to trust and obey. God will do what He said He would do in your life. God doesn't give up on you, so why should you quit? What does quitting gain for you? It simply lets the enemy win. And we are not here to give the enemy access to what God has for us. The best days are yet ahead. I know life is hard, but Jesus invites us to follow and trust Him. God knows you are going through a hard time. He knows the way can be dark. He's never promised to deliver you from the trouble. He's promised to deliver you through the trouble. When He delivered His people from Egypt, He didn't build a bridge over the Red Sea. He parted it so they could walk through it. So you will go through whatever circumstance you are in, but have faith that your God is going through it with you. His promise, His provision, His protection will never leave you. Be strong, be courageous, and win that race. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.